And that is basically when you try to talk about the products, then we talk about looks, feel, and then functions. And then we talk about the aesthetic aspects. We talk about its appeal to our rational and emotional sides. So these are some things which is important for industrial design. So this is also one important part. Now suppose you are trying to do a research in the areas of products industries, then this is something quite crucial to take care of. And if you try to see, that is why if you try to see the shape of a lamp has evolved to different shape. So it actually has its own industrial design aspects. And then furthermore, if you try to see, this is something quite crucial for us to see, in terms of shape, in terms of shape, in terms of configurations, in terms of pattern it has used, in terms of ornamental aspects it is trying to do, how appealing to our eyes. These are something quite crucial parameters when you try to see or do research towards industrial design, more to do with the product. Yes, it is good to do research in the area of industrial design because, like, I give an example of ventilator machines, or let us say infrared thermal scanner. Obviously, yes, professionally, if I have to say that it should do a service it is supposed to do. But at the back of our mind, it will always be there that it should look appealing. No, it should have a certain appealing to my eyes. Otherwise, no, I don't want to use that. So those type of things will be there. So even in your process, you might invest so much of things, but if that is not appealing, then that will not do benefit in terms of serving the communities. Then your work, your resources that you have invested might be wastage. So sometimes when you talk about industrial design, always think outside the box. So this is where it is. Now, if you try to see this Apple, I have given an example of Apple in terms of industrial design. It started with this logo, and then if you try to see in your current Apple, the logo itself has become like this. So just change in certain aspects. See, nothing much has changed, but things has to change. That is something quite interesting. So product maturities and market saturation, because what it was having earlier, if you keep on keeping that in a market for longer time, the taste, the preferences for that will get lost. So you need to create something, add values means that. So in industrial design research, it takes care of that. And many a time people feel that this is not a research. If you try to prove that certain formulas or input certain statistical tools and then solve some things, then that is a research. No, research can be looked from different things. Any innovative work is a research. Research doesn't mandatorily mean that it has to be published. I was listening the guest talk earlier that publication isn't important always. I'm telling it isn't important always. But if that idea is making a success in a service, in a socio-economic developmental activities, that itself is a research. So if you try to see like maturities, the corporate identity, you need to maintain your identities, and the environment as a whole changes. So based on that industrial design. So like under that, what can be registered, what can be registered, so you need to see. But this I am trying to see from a Bhutanese perspective, just to give an example. But this concept might be different for India. This concept might be different for Africa. You need to see your own intellectual properties right document or IP protocols of a country. And if you try to see that, it also gives you a right for 5 years in that design industrial, and you can renew every 5 years. So during that time, you can make all those changes. Then another one very important is trademark or service mark, like the logo of different things that we use. Goods, whether you talk about a goods or whether you talk about service. In our research, many a times, whether we talk about patents, whether we talk about industrial design, whether we talk about trademarks, We try to bring these things. And the simple thing is that we don't acknowledge that itself is a actually no disobeying the fact of intellectual property right, and we are liable for sue. So this is some things which we don't realize. Many a times we download certain materials which is without credits. So this is something quite important. So when you talk about trademarks like Coca-Cola, Idea 501, McDonald, that is specific types of words, symbols, or certain shapes of a good. So all these are actually the trademarks. So in your research, if you're trying to implement certain things, please try to see that whether you are using somebody's trademarks, or through your innovations and creativity, if you are creating the trademark like this. This is just an example, like that in terms of shape, in terms of name, in terms of slogan, in terms of logo types, in terms of color. So it can be in either way, the trademarks. And then trademarks, usually exclusive right is given for 10 years, and then it can be renewed after 10 years. So it usually, because of trademarks, it distinguishes your products or your work with somebody's work. Source of origin can be identified. It talks about qualities, and also it is good tools for advertisement in our. Then finally, which is very strong for research, is copyright. And this we keeps on doing, and see there, which we should not supposed to do. So if you try to see, actually copyright is a right given for your creations, for your authorship. That exclusive right is given actually. And this exclusive life is quite important, usually for lifetime, plus after your death, even your kins can hold it for another 50 years for some countries. For some countries, US, if I'm not mistaken, life plus 70 years. So it depends upon country to country, but that is an exclusive right. So certain things, because the research which which I am talking about, the investment that I have done for that research should be credited throughout my life, or after my death also. That is what exactly we are doing today. We might be referring some of the literatures and then putting in our references and literature review, and still crediting that authors if we are a genuine researchers. And whether we bother about whether that author is still living or not living, that is not often questions. What we are concerned now is we are still giving credit for that. So that is what exactly works in copyright. And this copyright is very much important for our research. Very much important when you do publications of a journal. Very much important when you do the publications of our books. So this is something, see, if you try to see authorship, book. So this is something quite critical. So my sincere request is don't forget this in our research. So this is something when it comes to intellectual property right, all these four things, trade secret, trademark, copyright, and patents, are some things which you should not forget in our research. Because our research can be anything. My academic research, suppose if I do this, my academic research, maybe my research might be more focused towards a certain trade secret. Maybe your research might be more focused towards trademark, but each of us might encounter all four or some of these or multiple of these, and we should respect this. This is now gaining momentum. Every country is now pushing forward to have their own intellectual property right. So just these simple mobiles, I keeps on reflecting here. And then there is a cartoon saying that what is the role of intellectual property in innovations? This is something quite important for us to always questions. So even if you just copy the pattern, you will be liable for sue because you have violated copyright. So you will The main inventor might file the copyright infringement uh, cases. Trademark Nokia. Nowadays, even no, we find different ways of writing Nokia, Noka, Noke. So these are actually violations of trademarks indeed. Even the melodies, because that is our artistic work, industrial designs, these are some things which we encounter. Now think about COVID-19 and then post-COVID-19. This intellectual innovations, research and intellectual properties, these three things will never ever get separated. They are always circling together and keep on making this spiral wrong and long. Meaning, I'm trying to say that in a life to move ahead, we need to do innovations. Innovations is only possible to be substances by our research, and we can do a professional research only if you are able to respect somebody's intellectual properties and then create your own intellectual properties. So this is a sum of a wealth of individual or a nations in this critical time. So I should say that innovations, research, and intellectual properties are never breaking chain. So just to have this disclaimer, I have not given the source in some of the figures. All pictures that are used for my presentations are resourced through the online internet search, freely available for reference in online Google. The content, mostly I try to refer the Department of Intellectual Property of Bhutan document, the World Intellectual Property documents, specifically the PBR's document, and then other freely available resources online. So these are the disclaimer I am making for making my presentations. And with this, I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and that is it from my side. So if there is any questions, I'll welcome the questions, and it depends upon how much time is left. I don't know. I leave it to the organization team. Back to you, Dr. Sakya.
Thank you, sir. That was really excellent presentation. And you have completed your presentation during the course of time. And just give us 1 minute. Thank you, sir. That was, and I will now go for the discussion session with your permission, sir. That was our Hemlal Bhattarai, sir, the dean from the Royal University, Bhutan, and he made the